Okay, so when you're in Dallas now, are you working gang cases then?
Yeah, so I got put as a rookie into the gang unit because of the guys that I already knew.
Okay.
Because of the work I'd already done with them, they had talked me up to the group supervisor there at the time, and he was a great dude, great supervisor. He protected me the entire time I was gone, because when you're a rookie at the academy for 6 months, you'll get shuffled around, and supervisors will have meetings, and they'll be like, oh, well, I just lost this guy, so I need like 2 more rookies. And they'll be like, oh, gangs, well, you're going to lose Jared, and he's going to go to this group. And that happened multiple times. And my boss put his foot down, and he's like, absolutely not. Jared's coming to the gang unit. And so I owed him a ton, because that's all I wanted to do, is work in the gang unit.
Okay, so when you're there, let's talk about 2 of the cases you worked on. We discussed two significant cases, so why don't you tell me about those?
Yeah, just to give everybody a little background of kind of how we operated as a gang unit, because we were very boots on the ground, kind of support system to any gang unit within Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we worked with any full-time gang unit at any police department all over DFW. And we kind of each had our own little niche depending on where we lived. So obviously I lived closer to Dallas than half of the guys in my group, so I spent more of my time with Dallas PD gang unit. 2 of my buddies lived closer to Fort Worth. They spent a lot more time with the Fort Worth gang unit, and so on. But we worked as a group pretty consistently all over the place, all over DFW. If a gang unit called us and said, hey, we're on a manhunt, we've got a warrant, we just had a shooting, or we're trying to do surveillance on a trap house and we've got no covert vehicles, can you help? And we'd be there immediately doing whatever they needed. And it was an absolute blast and some of the best times in my career. So that led into a couple of long-term cases that me and my partner at the time worked jointly with a partner of mine who's now a very good friend who was with the Dallas Police Department gang unit. So we had one that was kind of unique. It was a very stereotypical narcotics case, but it was unique for us in the fact that we got started with a specific problem in a specific community in Dallas where this one Serrano's gang was just causing trouble. They were selling a little bit of street level dope, mostly weed and crack, if I remember right. And then just causing other normal problems, just robberies, burglaries, whatever. So we knew they were a problem, and this area had been plagued by gang issues for decades. So we're like, okay, we need something to do. Me and my partner, we're both still fairly new. We'd been on the job for maybe only a year when we started working the case. And we basically worked our way up over 3 years from starting with just 16, 17, 18-year-old gang members selling dope on the corner and committing burglaries and robberies. And we worked that up to who was supplying them and who was supplying that guy and who's all in line with that guy in the neighborhood, all the way up to their main connect from Mexico, who also resided in Dallas and was bringing up his cocaine straight to the border. So that was pretty unique for our group. It had never been done before, as far as taking a kind of lower level gang issue and continuing to work it up the levels over and over. And it finally culminated in us doing our first wiretap case, and first for the unit. And me and my partner did that, and that was something I never want to do again, as I'm sure it's a lot of work. I'm super happy we did it. We made a huge difference in this community, or at least I'd like to think we did. We put a lot of gang members in jail. We put a lot of mid and upper level drug traffickers in federal prison. And then the coolest thing about the case is over that 3 years, we had so much intel coming in about just everything else going on. Like, oh, well, this guy over here, he's a 3-time felon, been deported twice. He always has a gun on him. Or this guy over here, he's been deported 4 times. He's always got a gun and dope on. This guy's a fugitive for this. We solved, I think, 2 cold case murders, maybe 3. 2 I remember distinctly. And I'm talking cold case, like 10, 15-year-old murders. And all of this is while we're still working our bigger case. And so we had, I used to remember the number. I mean, we had probably 40 or 50 federal indictments on just ancillary targets, and then 19 on our final indictment.
Wow, that's a big case.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun, and we very much enjoyed it. And that partnership with Dallas PD, for me especially, because again, like I said, I live not too far away.
Mm-hmm.
I could get to the Dallas PD headquarters in half the time it took me to get to my office. So take any excuse any day to go work at Dallas PD. And I did another case that I talked to you about that was in an area of North Dallas that was very predominantly African American, and it was a very unique neighborhood that was built in the 50s to be developed as a community for these people that had lived there. So many of them had lived there since their houses were brand new. So I mean, you have a large elderly population. You have their kids that still live in this neighborhood. Came around, we were talking like a few thousand people in this very specific neighborhood, and it had been plagued by gang violence for decades, probably since the 80s. And each generation of gang member just bred the next one. I mean, they just recruited younger and younger, and then they grow up and they do the same thing. They not only would sell drugs in the general North Dallas area, but they would also prey on their own neighborhood. They would run trap houses in the neighborhood. They would commit robberies in the neighborhood, murders in the neighborhood, burglaries.
Predominantly Hispanic gangs?
No, Bloods.
Okay.
That particular gang in the neighborhood was always Bloods affiliated. We decided, and when I say we, it was me, my partner from Dallas PD gang unit, and my partner from ATF. We decided that this was something we wanted to target, and I believe it was my partner from Dallas PD that kind of had the initial idea of what to do. And I think, like I told you, instead of taking the FBI approach, which would have been make a gigantic case out of it where nobody goes to jail for 3 or 4 years, we were like, how quickly can we target each of these high-level gang members and put them in federal prison as quickly as possible? And we're going to dismantle this gang one piece at a time so that we can make the quickest impact in this community that we can. And that's what we did. And it was super successful. We knew who all the main players were. We knew who the shot callers were. We knew what their activity was. And we basically just saturated this area looking for these guys and just catching them with dope and a gun over and over. And we had a great federal prosecutor who was willing to take all of the cases, no matter the amount of dope, no matter what. Long as we had a federal nexus and we had some distribution material, and especially the gun for the enhancement, we were good to go. And so we started tackling like each guy kind of almost one at a time. And it was extremely successful. We took down, I think, 2 trap houses in this neighborhood with the help of Dallas PD narcotics. And just to kind of wrap up the difference that we made, because I'll never forget this, my Dallas PD buddies would tell me that when they'd been in this neighborhood for as long as they could remember, you would literally have old ladies coming out of their front yard to like give them the finger and taking pictures of their cars. Or if anybody was in a covert vehicle trying to do surveillance, you would have little kids, old men, old ladies coming out, taking pictures of the cars to share amongst the neighborhood, like, hey, the police is out here. Absolutely, these people hated the police. And I can't remember if it was the first trap house or the second, but we had already put a number of kind of the higher up guys in the gang. We put like 2 or 3 of them in federal custody already. And my partner from Dallas PD was having a lot of interaction with a community organization. They had like a rec center in the neighborhood and stuff. And he was talking to them, just giving them ideas of, hey, here's what we're trying to do to help your neighborhood. So word was getting around. It was either the first or second trap house. We're out there on the warrant, and there were these old ladies coming out of their houses trying to bring us bottled water. I swear I remember one lady with a plate of cookies. I'm not kidding. And people just coming out and trying to thank us, like, while we're working, like we're trying to keep the area clear. SWAT still had their Bearcat out there, and all these people are coming out. And our first reaction was like, oh, here we go again. And it was the complete opposite.
Mm.
And I'll never forget that. By the time we finally wrapped up and said, okay, we've got enough guys, my partner at Dallas PD ran the stats, and he found in the 2 years that we had been working, there was a 40% reduction in violence.
Wow. So very satisfying.
Yeah. 40% reduction in this neighborhood. And now the sad thing is, as time goes on, I don't know how it is now.
Yeah.
But
at least at the time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the time, I feel like we made that big difference. But yeah, it was a lot of that. A lot of support in communities. That was probably one of my favorite things. Is as a Fed, you can get stuck in this kind of higher level view of what's going on and work in really big cases and big criminals, which is great. That's what they were there for. But I could see that a lot of my coworkers lost, like, kind of couldn't see the forest for the trees sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
and lost sight of the impact that they were truly making in the community. And I love that I got to see that the little bit that I did.
Yeah.
But I eventually got moved out of the gang unit and got moved to a group at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. And that was actually a ton of fun, even though I was pretty pissed about it because I had started working cases that they had wanted the group at DFW to work.
Mm-hmm.
But I was finding cases with the tiniest gang nexus to get creative. And it was I was trying to work cargo theft and like large scale organized retail theft and property crimes that all started with the gang nexus. And anyway, so I got rewarded for a whole bunch of hard work by getting force moved to a group I didn't want to go to, but it was a blessing in disguise. I miss those guys a ton.